As a doctor, when I get a chance to sleep, I need to make it count. Through my understanding of sleep physiology and the latest scientific research, I've dramatically improved my sleep. I use 10 key strategies, starting from the moment that I wake up in the morning. And today I'm going to share those with you, so you can transform the way you sleep and the way you feel. The first secret to sleeping well is consistently waking up at the same time every day. Most of us already do that 5 days a week, but the issue arises when you sleep in on the weekends, which shifts your body's natural sleep schedule. Then suddenly on Monday morning, you need to shift your sleep schedule back again, which feels terrible. This is called social jet lag. So as hard as it may seem, try setting your alarm for the same time every day for the next few weeks. And notice if that makes a difference in your ability to fall asleep at night and your energy levels during the day. Now, I know it can be so tempting to hit that snooze button, but here's one natural trick to tell your brain it's time to get up. Expose yourself to direct sunlight. Obviously, this can be tricky if you're an early riser, or if you live in Canada like me, where the sun rises late in the winter. So the next best thing is light therapy. These are powerful lights that can mimic the sun and have a similar impact on your brain. Just remember that light intensity matters, so find a light that provides at least 10,000 lux at a comfortable distance. Personally, I prefer a product that shines light from above rather than one that sits on your desk shining light up at your face, which I find can be uncomfortable on the eyes. So why does this work? It all comes down to your body's circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock, which is controlled by a part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This is a group of cells in the hypothalamus that responds to light and dark signals. So in the morning, when light hits the retina of your eye, it sends a signal to your brain telling it to stop making the sleep hormone melatonin and to start releasing cortisol to help you wake up. Then in the evening when it's dark, melatonin levels rise, signaling to your body that it's time to unwind and prepare for sleep. We live in a 24-hour world. But it may surprise you to know that our natural circadian rhythm is closer to 25 hours, meaning that without the appropriate cues, like sunlight or meal times, your bedtime would just keep shifting later and later every night. And we know that because when researchers put people in bunkers or caves with no external time cues, that's exactly what happened. So to keep your body aligned with the rest of the world and operating on a 24-hour schedule, you need to make sure you're giving your body the right cues. And light exposure first thing in the morning is one of the most ancient and most powerful cues to regulate your internal clock. So we've established that your circadian rhythm and melatonin production are important parts of our sleep cycle. But if you've ever tried taking melatonin and still had difficulty falling asleep, it might not surprise you that there's another really important system at play. This is called sleep pressure. Here's how it works. While you're awake, adenosine builds up in your brain and makes you feel tired. Then while you're asleep, your adenosine levels decrease, alleviating that sleep pressure and allowing you to wake up feeling refreshed. You may be thinking, can I just take adenosine as a supplement? Unfortunately, adenosine supplementation doesn't work as a sleep aid. But interestingly, we do use adenosine in the hospital for a completely different reason. We use it to treat certain dangerous rapid heart rhythms. When I inject a patient with adenosine, it dramatically slows their heart rate within a matter of seconds. And sometimes it stops it completely, temporarily of course. Sometimes the best way to fix something is turning it off and then turning it back on again. And that's basically what adenosine does to your heart. So needless to say, we need to let adenosine naturally build up in the brain throughout the day and avoid doing things that can disrupt it. And one of the most common ways that we ruin our sleep pressure is by having caffeine too late in the day. That's because caffeine directly blocks adenosine's effect on the brain. That's how it keeps you awake. Now, I'm not saying that caffeine is bad. I drink tea every day, and drinking coffee has actually been linked to a lower risk of several diseases. But we need to use it strategically to avoid a negative impact on our sleep. Depending on your age and genetics, it takes around 3 to 7 hours for the caffeine levels in your blood to drop by 50%. So it takes quite a while for you to completely get it out of your system. People also vary in their sensitivity to caffeine, so there's no one-size-fits-all approach here. But many sleep experts recommend avoiding caffeine for about 10 hours before bed, and I think that's a good place to start. Personally, I find that I sleep better if I avoid caffeine after about 1 p.m., whereas my husband Mark tries to avoid coffee after 4 p.m. And it's common in many cultures to enjoy a shot of espresso after dinner. Although I could never do that. The point is, everyone's different, so you may have to experiment a little bit to figure out what works for you. Napping is another common way to ruin that sleep pressure, because anytime you fall asleep, your brain starts clearing that adenosine. But just like caffeine, napping is associated with some health benefits, so you just need to use it strategically. For most of us, that means limiting our naps to less than 30 minutes and trying to take them early in the afternoon so you can still build up sleep pressure later in the day. My grandfather used to work crazy hours as a general surgeon, and he's always been a prolific napper. Today, he's happy and healthy well into his 90s, and he's still a strong proponent of the power nap. The only exception is if you're suffering from chronic insomnia. In this case, napping is not recommended because you really want to focus on building up that sleep pressure so that you can fall asleep at night. Exercise is another powerful way that we can promote sleep. But a word of caution, try to avoid strenuous exercise for the 2 hours before bedtime because it can be really activating. The optimal time for your sleep is probably about 4 to 6 hours before your bedtime. But honestly, I think the best time to exercise is when you can consistently fit it into your schedule. Personally, I like to combine socializing with exercise, so I like to meet up with my friends to go for Pilates or to play squash. It makes it way more fun, and it holds me accountable too. Now let's talk about alcohol. We all know that it can make you feel tired. But did you know that it's actually terrible for your sleep? It may help you fall asleep faster, but as alcohol is metabolized in your body, it can cause a rebound effect. And people often wake up in the second half of the night, or they have vivid dreams or nightmares as a result. Even worse, it can induce or worsen sleep apnea, a condition where you stop breathing in your sleep, starving your brain of oxygen, and then leading to unrestorative sleep. Personally, the effect that alcohol has on my sleep is so predictable. If I go out for drinks with my friends, I can guarantee you that the sleep score that I get on my watch is gonna be 30% lower than usual. So if you want the best sleep possible, avoid alcohol altogether. And if you are gonna have a drink, make sure your last drink is earlier in the night so it has less impact on your sleep. Okay, so you woke up, you exposed yourself to bright light, you stopped having caffeine in the afternoon, you worked out at about 4 o'clock, you avoided alcohol, you have set yourself up for success. But the most important part has yet to come. The wind down routine. And this is probably the most consistent part of my day. You know how parents often have a set bedtime routine for young kids to help them get to sleep? Well, adults need that too. Our brains aren't like a light switch. You can't just switch it off and expect to go from studying or working or watching a tense episode of Squid Games to falling asleep. Sleep experts talk about it as a gradual process, like a plane slowly descending and landing on the ground. It takes time and preparation. I start my wind down 1 to 2 hours before I actually want to be asleep. And one trick I find super helpful is setting a reminder alarm. If you have an iPhone, they have this feature built in. I think the default wind down time is just 15 minutes, which I think is ridiculous. So switch that to 1 or 2 hours. Then set your wake up time. That's 6 a.m. for me. And now I'll get a reminder at 8:30 p.m. when it's time to start winding down. This is my reminder to stop writing patient notes, stop researching for my next video, stop reading the news. Basically anything that's gonna be stressful or activating, stop it. And then I usually transition by doing boring tasks like loading the dishwasher and resetting our space for the next day. And I'll often turn on music or listen to an audiobook. This is also the time I start preparing my environment for sleep, starting with dimming the lights. At our place, that means turning on small lamps and turning off the bright overhead lights. This ties back to the circadian rhythm and melatonin production. We want to keep lights dim to promote the release of melatonin. And I also find it a nice cue to start relaxing. The next step is turning down the temperature of your room. Aim for cooler than 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. This is important because our core temperature naturally decreases in the evening to prepare for sleep. This drop is driven by our circadian rhythm, and it's crucial for initiating sleep. Another way you can support this process is by taking a hot shower or a bath. It can be nice and relaxing, and when you towel off, your body temperature begins to drop. And this cooling effect signals the brain that the sun has set and it's time to get ready for bed. And here's one last tip about temperature. Keep your hands and feet warm. I know that might sound counterintuitive, but it actually helps lower your core temperature. And here's why. Your body is designed to prioritize keeping your internal organs warm. So when you get cold, the blood vessels in your hands and feet constrict, limiting blood flow to those areas and redirecting blood flow to your core. But when you keep your hands and feet warm, it promotes those blood vessels to dilate and get wider. And this allows more heat to escape from your core. So keep your room cool and keep your hands and feet warm to fall asleep faster and get a better quality sleep. If you're someone who uses your phone or your computer late at night, then you've probably noticed some of the built-in features to reduce blue light. Apple has Night Shift and Microsoft has Night Light, but are these actually helpful? It's complicated. Blue light, which is naturally present in sunlight and artificial light, is known to suppress melatonin production. Years ago, when I was in medical residency, my roommate bought blue light filter goggles to help with sleep. I liked the idea, so I bought some too. And I would wear them late at night working on the computer, and I convinced myself that they were helping. So where's the controversy? Clearly, it's not about making a fashion statement. Recent research suggests that while blue light does suppress melatonin production, the impact is small compared to the mentally stimulating content on our devices. In other words, it's not just the bright light that's keeping you awake, it's the endless gaming and scrolling that makes it so difficult to fall asleep. So while blue light filters may have a modest effect, the key is really setting boundaries with your devices. Now, I always hear people recommending don't bring devices into the bedroom, and I agree with that in principle. If you can do that, amazing. But it's just not realistic for me. My phone is my pager, so that's how the hospital reaches me when I'm on call at night, and it's also my alarm clock. So here's what works for me. I set my alarm, plug the phone in, and then put it face down so that I can't see the light, and I put it somewhere out of reach and out of sight. And that way, I'm not tempted to just grab it while I'm sitting in bed. And as for my blue light filtering goggles, I actually still wear them every night. While I'm not convinced that the evidence is strong enough to recommend that everyone goes out and buys a pair, they have become a really important physical cue for me. When I put them on, it's a signal to my brain that it's time to wind down and get ready for sleep. And for me, that's reason enough to continue using them. The last step to my routine is ensuring complete darkness in the room. At home, we have blackout blinds, and we cover up any electronics that produce light. And when we're traveling or staying in hotels, I always unplug the digital alarm clock or flip it over so I can't see the light. I actually really don't like digital alarm clocks because not only do they produce a bunch of light, but they're constantly reminding you what time it is, which is really unhelpful when you're trying to fall asleep. And even if the room is really dark, I still put on my sleep mask. I started wearing a sleep mask when I would have to sleep during the day after an overnight call shift. And then I began bringing it anywhere we traveled because we always seemed to get the hotel that had like a bright street light right in front of the window. And just like the goggles, this mask has become a really powerful physical sleep cue. The minute I take off my goggles and put on my sleep mask, I'm already falling asleep. And honestly, it's the best feeling. At this point, I've got this routine down to a science, and I can pretty much fall asleep anywhere. But every once in a while, even if I've done everything right, sometimes I still find it difficult to fall asleep. In those moments, you need a backup plan. I rely on very specific techniques to induce a deep state of relaxation. And I've made a separate video that walks you through exactly how to do this. So if you take your sleep seriously, I highly recommend that you check out this video next. I want to give a huge thank you to Dr. Perry Menzies for peer reviewing this content. Not only is he a good friend, but he's a psychiatrist and a sleep expert, and his insights have been invaluable. Let me know in the comments if you've got any other tips or tricks that work for you. Bye for now.